And it's another beautiful day of the Pirate Broadcast, and we are excited to bring interesting people doing interesting things. Every single episode, something interesting will become of this episode, I promise. And if you're not familiar with the Pirate Broadcast, we stream on Facebook, YouTube, also on this Periscope thing. So, Twitter, if you're on Twitter, you can connect with us, and here on LinkedIn Live as well. So today we have a special guest. You probably know my bearded brother, Curt. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Russ. Thanks so much for having me on. We share barbers and stylists here. But your beard has put mine to shame here. It's yours is a lot longer.
It's one of those things that you just it grows. It's a gravity thing, it's like the gravity took place and everything on top came to the bottom. So.
Exactly. Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. It's a fascinating thing. We've been connected for a while, and really, LinkedIn is so unusual in respect with, people go in and out of your feeds, and probably 6 months ago or so, we really active, and all of a sudden your audience changes and you see different people come in and go, and depending on your activity, you just have to continue to go out there and do an outreach program to get new people or see the same people all the time. And the Pirate Broadcast has been great to get an audience together on a regular basis. However, it's nice to be able to bring people in that I've been connected with for a while, like yourself. And so, catch us up on what are you doing right now? What are your goals? You do a mastermind and a couple of different activities around the interwebs, and so catch us up on what's new for Curt.
Yeah. So, speaker, trainer, author, just got off a call booking a speaking engagement across the pond in Europe. Now, of course, everything that's going on, I can't worry about whether or not it's going to happen. You just got to move forward and focus on your outputs and what you can control. I'm still in the process promoting my book, 5 Pillars of the Freedom Lifestyle. And
congratulations on the launch and everything.
Thank you very much. And really a passion project that is going to turn into a prosperity project, not just for me, but for anyone, is really, it's called the Freedom Media Network. We're going to be launching our news site here this week or next week. We launched our YouTube page or YouTube channel last month, and really about its long form interviews where I actually sit down with people, interesting people, designed to spur critical thinking. That empowers you to be more free, more abundant, more prosperous. So I've had, prosperity guru Randy Gage, written 14 books, 2-time New York Times bestseller, all the way from that to retired Brigadier General Robert Spalding, who just wrote a book called Stealth War, all about China and some scary stuff that's going on regarding weaponization of 5G, whether or not coronavirus may have been created in a lab there. Just interesting discussions that you may agree with it, you may disagree with it, but it's designed to spur critical thinking and discussion, because I think that critical thinking is something that is not only really important as we embark on a really fast changing world that's changing exponentially every day.
Yeah.
But some of it, I think, as we're seeing over the last week or two, is lacking in our society, with a herd mentality and I call it peak lobotomy stage. So
yeah, peak lobotomy stage. I can't disagree with you. I cannot disagree with you. And also, I think it's really important that we start having different conversations, more intimate conversations, because, as we grow so much in technology and expand our horizons on what is possible, I think we still need to keep the humanity involved in it. And, and it's one of the things that I spread, is the kindness factor and, the community and involved in it. And it doesn't require you to be in the same room all together all at once to take place. And it is something that I think a lot of people are starving for, is the community of of ideas and expanding, so on some of these topics that you're talking about. So
Yeah.
on the book, let's talk a little bit about the book. Let's dive into the book, and the 5 pillars, and talk about what those pillars represent to you personally.
Sure.
And what kind of a journey did you take to get to that pull the publish button?
Yeah. Yeah, the book, it's not just about my journey, but there's a lot of people that folks here on LinkedIn will recognize that are in the book. Tim Allison of the Screw the Naysayers podcast is in there. Marcus Aurelius Anderson, Dr. Natalia Vikovsky,
Yeah.
Dr. Bobby Canaru, Toph Evans, Fraser Cameron, folks who reached a crossroads in their lives and decided to find freedom and fulfillment, or help others get there as well. Tim Allison, when I quote him in the book, we had a discussion about the fact that, and he had a guest, I can't remember who the guest was, that said, unfortunately, all too often it takes what they called infrastructure rattling events to get us to make those changes in our lives. Because often the pain of the status quo not often, I would say every time, the pain of the status quo has to become greater than the perceived pain of making a change. So often it takes that infrastructure rattling event. For me, it was the death of my father to snap me out of it. I had 7 figures, nice house, nice cars. I had scaled a PR and ad agency. I've built 3 profitable businesses. But when my father died, he was someone who worked on the space program, holds a patent for the switches on the Boeing 777, designed fighter jet technology, all this cool stuff. And at his wake, grown men are crying. Not a single person mentioned his career. It was what he did in the community, at church, reading audiobooks for the blind, being at all my recitals, my track meets, all those types of things. And so I decided then and there to make a change. Of course, I was still scared, and it took several years, but I shut down my agency at peak revenue overnight. And I have people who say, well, why didn't you sell it off? I said, well, yeah, if I had allowed myself and given my permission to really be aware of my feelings like 5 years earlier, I would do that. But I felt guilt. I felt shame because I'm a man, right? And I'm supposed to tough it out and I'm supposed to make the money and do those things.
Yeah.
And I think that's a common occurrence. A lot of people are shocked when I tell them that statistically, when you look at suicides in America, 7 in 10 are by men aged 45 to 54. By the way, white men aged 45 to 54. And I don't say that to make anyone feel sorry for middle-aged white men.
Right.
What I'm saying is it's interesting because women's rates of depression are much higher. And from what I've read, women seek help. Men do not, because it goes back to that guilt, that shame, that I got to tough it out. And I compare it to being in a gym. There's normal workout pain where you push through the pain, and that's good. Then there's the pain if you're doing something and you feel something like, I just tore a muscle, but you're like, I'm going to push out another 3 reps. There's a difference between pain and stupidity, and toughness and stupidity. And we have to realize that and make a change. And I did, and dedicated my life to helping others find freedom and fulfillment. And the book, the pillars are what I used to get there. And I use that to help others get there as well.
Well, and I think you bring up several good points, and I want to kind of dive into this because it's important for us to understand as a society that the pain and the challenges we run into are not unique to an individual.
Yeah.
They're universal. And when we think and feel that we need to do this alone, and it's an isolation, and when we isolate, that's the seed for depression. That's the seed for mental illness. That's the seed for some of the things that really impact our life in a negative way. And I've had with my son's suicide. It's a challenge that it's whatever he felt he was going through, and whatever he believed that was the only way that he had to choose to exit. And so it's really a mind-bending event when you think about how can you get to that point? And, trust me, I've had, you know, times in my life where it's felt that way.
Yeah.
And asking for help is one of the best ways to start the journey back from that depression, that, that feeling of I have to do this myself, tighten up the bootstraps, just get it done. I don't need directions. I know where I'm going.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's a two-way street, right? Because people often who you think are doing great
Mhm.
aren't, because we're taught to listen. I think there's something to be said about positive mental attitude and having an abundant mindset. I think that's
Mhm.
extremely important. And so, but that goes deeper than just putting on a face and putting on a fake, a fake facade.
Yeah.
And so, certainly there has been a situation where, you know, in my family, there's been a lot of addiction,
Mhm.
bipolar disorder, and a host of other um, really horrible problems. And I think it's always assumed that, well, Curt was fine. Curt escaped that. Curt went to the private school. He's fine. And so no one ever asked how you're doing.
Right.
You can't always assume, and I'm not saying this to make me feel sorry for myself, because I had to gird my loins and say, screw it, I don't care, and cut the scarcity. I call them scarcity pimps. Those
Mhm.
people who make you feel bad for doing good. It's
Right.
funny. It's funny that I had a blog post recently that, okay, fat shaming is bad. And I agree with that, but somehow healthy shaming is okay. Like, oh, I heard that, I've been what's called paleo for 12 years,
Uh-huh.
after a lot of pain and a lot of problems. And I have the most unhealthy people in the world tell me, well, I heard that's unhealthy. I heard it's going to do this to your cholesterol. Is this? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you over the sound of you shoving cookies in your mouth. It's funny. Or even now with coronavirus, my wife and I were talking, there's 600,000 deaths from heart disease a year.
Yeah.
And it's like, these people are worried about the coronavirus, and so now they have to stay home, and their heart disease is going to get worse. It's
Yeah.
like, control, do what you can do with what you have. I think it was Teddy Roosevelt who said that.
Yeah.
Focus on what you can control. You are your brother's keeper in terms of not worrying about them in so far as getting in their business and judging, but simply asking, if you really care, not a fake thing, how you doing? You doing okay? And actually listening to that rather than asking that question just as an opening to tell them what's going on in your life. Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. Yeah, and I think we need to be more aware of it. You know, kindness is cool. Ask, reach out, just send a text message to a friend, just, sometime today, just check in for no reason other than checking in.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I changed my lifestyle. I've changed my lifestyle several times to, you know, chase arrive at the point in time where I could, be here in Arizona helping care for my parents and,
Mm-hmm.
be around family and people I care about. And, it's like, it's a choice. And you have
Yeah.
everything is a compromise in our life. Everything is a decision that we have to work through. And some decisions don't work out exactly the way you imagined, and sometimes the sacrifice of chasing the so-called success is not necessarily successful, right?
Yeah, and I recently on my show, Randy Gage and I talked about, there's fine lines on all of these things, right? Which is why the context and why I think long form discussions like these are important, because taken out of snippets, people assume certain things without actually having a discussion. For instance, I talk about customer personas all the time. Marketing
Mhm.
101, know who your customer is and speak to them. And I've had people, I'll do videos and I'll drop F bombs and I say things. That's how I am naturally, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's good or bad. You may love it, you may hate it. And people will come in and say, I would never buy from you because and I'll comment, I'll say, hey, I totally have empathy for your opinion. You're probably not in my customer persona. People see that and take it as a they compare what I talk about in terms of marketing one-on-one customer persona to like, xenophobic profiling. It's like, no, there's a difference here, or racial profiling or something. The same way, there's a fine line between making a conscious decision to give your time to people in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing it solely out of sense of guilt? Or are you doing it because there really is a true connection there? And the reason I bring this up is there are many people that I run into who the scarcity pimps in their lives, some of them are in their family,
Mm-hmm.
have taken control of their lives and basically ruined their lives. Because we're programmed from age 1 through 7, we're so susceptible to programming. And so if you have people in your lives, they could be parents, they could be teachers, they could be other people, program you for scarcity, program you for just over negativity, program you for, hey, you are a sorry sinner, you're unworthy and you're a born loser. And life is the struggle. If that's
just the way it is.
That's just the way it is. Then you really have to look. It's a fine line between even if they are people in your life who are family, who are quote unquote friends, it's a fine line. You have to look between cutting them out of your life and investing more time in them, or being Dandapani, who's a former Hindu monk who now goes around and speaks, calls it, being affectionately detached, being nice and being kind, but not letting one of those scarcity pimps ruin 2 lives in the process. You stop the flow there, but it's a fine line, right? Because we want to be kind to people, but by the same token, we have to look in if they're energy vampires, you got to protect yourself as well.
Well, and I think it was Jim Rohn that said, you are the accumulation of the 5 people you hang out with.
Yeah.
So, if you encourage and invite people that have an abundance mindset, have a positive outlook, and have an approach to life that is, hey, every day is a gift.
Right.
Every day is a moment that we should cherish and be grateful for. That's a lot different than saying, wake up and it's that sucks, I got to go to work. What the hell am I going to do this for? And it's like, there's a difference. And sometimes it's a choice because everybody feels down now and then. However, if you're thinking about the gratitude, I think gratitude is a powerful tool to get us to think about other people, other things outside of ourselves. And I think it's important for us as a society to start to understand that life is not, this is a lottery we won. Just being born is a gift. The fact that we have air and oxygen and things around us that bring us together, and the fact that we're unique individuals, every single one of us. And it's just a perspective that some people just gloss over and don't even really appreciate. So I want to take a minute, Curt, to thank everybody. Latasha from Houston, Gabriel, Jennifer, good morning. Angie, love that you're here. Jeff Young, good. Have a wonderful day today. Always found the best way to relieve depression is to stop focusing on myself. Right on, brother. These things that we're talking about, Curt, are really important subjects. And I know that you have a platform. So let's talk about the platform and how this is long form conversations are going to take off for you in your media adventure. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to critical thinking. We do a lot of things due to programming, as we've talked about.
Right.
If you were raised to have it's interesting. And when I talk about programming, it's not just your parents, it's not just your teachers, it might be church pulpits. I grew up Catholic, learning that prosperity and wealth is bad. But then you look at the interpretations of the Bible, and you go back to Constantine and what was removed from the Bible, and you look at the original translations, and everyone says money is the root of all evil. That's actually not the saying. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. And so But you would never know that based on 30-second sound clips or a 5-minute sermon, right? Because you look to others and we join clubs, gangs, these things out of a sense of community.
Because we feel owned, or we feel like we belong.
Exactly. And you're seeing this growth and explosion in what I would call dangerous tribalism now, in politics and in other things, where you can't even have a discussion of certain things. I worked in politics for many years. I don't do the political thing anymore. I consider myself to be, there's a new term called transpartisan, where it's let's solve problems. That alone, I've had people shout at me that is a danger, because you got to pick a side and you got to do these things where people won't even, you can't even have a discussion about the fact that you don't want to talk about politics anymore, right? Because
I don't want to talk about politics.
Yeah, right. And you lack, I mean, you see this with coronavirus now.
Yeah.
Why
is it a political issue?
It's become virtue signaling. My wife said this last night. It's like, when people vote, and I'm going to offend some people here, but now it's people never give a thought to anything regarding policy. I think there's a difference between policy and politics. Never give a thought to anything. Don't get out in the community and do anything. They substitute a click, a like, a share for going out and knocking on doors. Like, if you really care about an issue, go do something. Get off the couch. But what they substitute now is it's virtue signaling. It's I'm a better person than you because I posted a picture on Facebook with my I voted sticker. I say this as someone who used to do that. I say this as someone who used to sit there for hours and hours watching cable news and getting mad and getting angry and getting stressed.
Graduated? Did you graduate?
We don't allow news in the house, right? And I have people that
I don't like TV, period.
Yeah. Well, the coronavirus has become the same thing now. It's become a virtue signaling thing. I've seen this. I've seen debates now and arguments. I'm a better person than you because I think we should cancel that networking event because we're saving lives and we're saving seniors. And if you try to actually have a long form discussion about, well, let's actually look at that and let's compare the trade-offs, right? If you shut down that 30-person networking event, but you don't shut down the local Boeing factory with 7,000 people, does shutting down the networking event really matter? If you don't shut down everything, then you might as well shut down nothing. But so when I talk about critical thinking and long form discussions, I think that's where it comes in. And having it on a variety of issues to really go beyond, 45-minute discussions, not 30-second discussions, not 140 character tweets. Yeah. I think this is the future because, the sound bites play into our desire for security.
Yeah.
And if humanity was so obsessed with security that we never ventured out of the caves, and what was outside the caves? A lot of dangerous stuff from the environment, from wild beasts, from all these huge things. Well, we used our minds and critical thinking to survive and thrive. Now, oh my gosh, the answer is quarantine. Someone's got to save us for it. We can't control ourselves. We need someone to ban supersized drinks because I can't control it's like, just stop, gird your loins, think, use the brain. That's our most powerful. Our bodies are really weak when you think about it.
Well, our ability to adapt is the most powerful thing we can do. Use critical thought, add a little logic, and then, move forward. It's like, adapt to your environment, adapt to what is going on around you. And I think that goes back to our original point. Depression and things are also, kind of started as a result of inability to adapt. It's like, okay, you're in a situation that you don't feel like there's any way out, and you have to change in order to change, right?
Absolutely.
And all of these things can go back to critical thought, thinking about, Einstein said, hey, if I had to solve a problem, I'd think about it for, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd think about it for about 55 minutes.
Right.
And it's really we have so many opportunities in this world to be able to generate um, new ideas, new ways of thinking, new ways of adjusting, and I would love this to be a long form conversation, because this is really important conversation to take place in life, and in the way we're pursuing our our future. You know, how are we going to manage through some of these things? You know, you talk about healthcare, you talk about politics, you talk about life in general, and the isolation of ideas, and being the, you know, going up on the hill and planting your flag and saying this is the way it should be. You know, screw all you other people. And that's not necessarily true. You know, we all have ideas. We all have individual, you know, thoughts and processes that we're going through. We have these things that we have to hold on to. And I think it's important for us to understand that, you know, you have an opinion, Curt, just like I have an opinion.
Yeah.
And it's not good, bad, or indifferent. It's not right or wrong. It's just from where I come from. It's my perspective. It's my history. It's my information that I've accumulated, right or wrong, you know, from religion, kids, parents, family, environment. You know, if you're brought up in one environment compared to another environment, you're going to have a different perspective on life. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you seen The Joker with Joaquin Phoenix?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
You know, it's so interesting because I mean, it's very dark. It's disturbing, but at the very end, you know, he gives a speech. I won't give it away, but it's funny that the right looks at it and says, "Aha," and the left looks at it and says, "Aha." But in the end, his speech is about the fact that we're all talking past each other. And there's no sense of empathy, and people confuse empathy with sympathy, which they're not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they confuse empathy with, if you have a different view and I have a different view, empathy is me realizing he has a different view, but I'm going to listen. Maybe there's something I can learn. It's not giving in and being converted by you. That's not empathy. No. I can maintain my values, but still respect that you have a different opinion. And I think we've lost that. And in many cases, when you look at tribalism in social media, tribalism in religion, tribalism in politics, tribalism across it usually gangs. It comes in many cases from people who don't have meaning in their lives, who don't have that sense of meaning. And when you don't have that, you latch on to things. You can latch on to the dopamine rush that we know that has been proven study after study of Facebook, of Netflix. And you substitute that where there is a hole, you substitute that in. And what it does is it sucks you in. And we know, based on studies they did on Facebook in 2012, that your timeline, your news feed, affects your mood and your behavior. And that's a really scary thing. And so I think the ultimate freedom, I ask, you know, what does freedom mean to you from my guests? I think the ultimate freedom comes between your two ears. Because if you can be aware of what's going on around you, have that situational awareness, then you're less likely to be affected by it in terms of mind control. And that may sound hyped, but really, when you think about it, right? If you give other people the ability to affect your dopamine and substitute that for real meaning and fulfillment, you've allowed someone else to control your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I and you see it so often as well. It's like, I just need more likes. And hey, I'm not immune to it. I'm not, you know, we're all, I mean, it's programmed. It's proven. It's like, okay, my number's going down. I feel sad. It's like,
totally.
Independent thought is so important right now, more than any other time, I think, because there's so many things that could impact our lives. And that's why I'm passionate about what I'm doing, you know, and I'm always fascinated by people and their opinions and their thoughts and how they arrived at where they are. And I just want to thank you, Curt, for being here. I'm humbled by the opportunity to have a conversation, and I look forward to longer conversations in the future and supporting you and in your adventures. So thank you so much for being here.
Russ, likewise. And I really appreciate you for having me on. And I will say, you're very meticulous in how more than any other show I've ever been on, reminders and getting me the information. It's awesome. So you have a great operation running here.
Well, and I'm expanding that operation to the Pirate Syndicate to help others that don't want to deal with the overwhelm, the technology, and everything that goes along with it, because I believe that we all have a gift. We all have a voice. You know, sometimes you have to decide to step out and share that voice and that gift. And so if I can assist people in their journey and help them with the overwhelm and the impact that they can make in the world, I'd love to do so. So, you know, that's one of the things that I'm passionate about, and the whole process that you went through and experienced, and the branding and everything that goes along with it. 5 years ago, you know, it was challenging. You know, it was very challenging to get online and stream live and do some things like we're doing now, and it's changing lives. It is changing lives, and I believe that you know, we need to share these ideas. We need to share these thoughts and make sure that society has an opportunity to voice their opinion in certain ways, and also be open to other people's thoughts and opinions. So
yeah, absolutely. And with everything that's changing, heck, look now, social distancing and everyone's got to stay home. There's a great opportunity to allow people, all right, while you're staying home, wondering if your job is going to be eliminated,
yeah,
start putting your thoughts out there. I think it's Matt Ridley who, in The Rational Optimist, talked about the way progress actually happens is when ideas commingle and have sex. That was his term. But to have sex, you got to have that empathy and you got to bring them together. So
yeah.
you are enabling sex with your show. So I salute you.
Well, what a wonderful Wednesday. And with that idea, peace, love, and harmony, right? You know, it's like, let's throw the sex in it too. Well, Curt, this has been fabulous, and I look forward to the next adventure and staying in contact with you and whatever's happening in the media world for you today. So
likewise, Russ, and thanks so much for having me on. Thanks for doing this.
And also, as you know, kindness is cool and smiles are free. And you enjoy the day.